Do you realize how obtuse you sound at the idea that nobody else can be charged by this? There are 6 co-conspirators in the files that Congress has seen that are currently blocked off. You can't tell me that 1,000 little girls and boys were trafficked and nobody else.
And what the crimes
I don't know their names because they're concealing them in the files, Clay, because the Trump administration is covering this up.
Do you know what?
So you're telling me to tell you something that I don't know.
The so-called Epstein victims who have received over $100 million.
So-called Epstein victims. We should call that out for what that is. That's a bullshit.
No, it's not. They are saying that they are Epstein victims and they have been paid. They can come out and say, no one is stopping them. I would welcome them. I would encourage them. Come out and tell us.
Actually, quite a few people are fed up with. They're fed up with the fact that people are going in this country and they're carrying water for pedophiles in America. That's what they're fed up with, Clay.
There is nothing that makes me boil more than watching MAGA boot licking Epstein defenders try to defend the DOJ's hiding of Epstein co-conspirators. And look, I'm going to be honest with you right now. We're about to dive into something that genuinely makes my blood pressure spike. Jeffrey Epstein, the man who allegedly ran one of the most disturbing trafficking operations in modern history. And yet, we're still having conversations where people are calling his victims so-called victims. So-called? So-called? I need you to sit with that for a moment, because that's where we are. That's the level of discourse we're dealing with from certain corners. This isn't just about one man anymore. This is about accountability. This is about justice. This is about why certain powerful people seem absolutely terrified of transparency. And honestly, the contrast between how Europe is handling this versus how America is handling this, it's stark. It's damning. We're going to break this down together, you and me, right now. If you love watching me unravel disasters like this, please click that subscribe button.
Well, let's hear now from my panel. Isaiah Martin is a Democrat congressional candidate in Texas who has just gone viral after taking on 20 Republicans in this week's Jubilee. Mike Nellis is host of Endless Urgency, the strategist behind White Dudes for Harris. And Clay Travis is founder of Outkick. And Tyrus is on his way and will be joining us very soon. Okay, just first of all, Clay Travis, let's just talk about this Epstein scandal. Because it is completely bizarre sitting here in London, watching people go down like dominoes. And these are not insignificant figures. You've got the former Prince Andrew in line to the throne of the UK, obviously. You've got Lord Mandelson, who was a UK ambassador to the United States. He's gone. They've both been completely torched as a consequence of what's emerged about them in these files. But we're not seeing that in America. Why are we not? And do you want us to?
Well, I think, first of all, there should be people bearing consequences who were involved in actually some sort of activity with girls alongside of Epstein. And I think you have seen a lot of Americans lose their jobs. I mean, the head of one of the biggest law firms in the United States lost his job. You've seen people in media lose jobs recently that they've gotten. But I think also people are looking at some of the details and saying there's a difference. For instance, Howard Lutnick's being attacked right now, and you can criticize him for continuing to interact with Jeffrey Epstein, certainly. But he went to Epstein Island with his wife and a bunch of kids on a cruise trip to the Caribbean. And so all connections are not the exact same. I think what you're actually seeing in the United States is there's being a lot of discernment as to what was going on. I'll also add in, there's so much volume here that I do think a lot of people are just frankly overwhelmed with the 3 million different documents that are out there and all the different names that are flooding the zone. I think there's some degree of people just being overwhelmed with the sheer amount of people that were involved here across all the landscape. And so, again, I think there's some discernment when it comes to actual interaction. Are these business partners? Are these people who were involved with women or not? Are these people that may have even gone to the island, as I said, in the case of Howard Lutnick, and done so with their wife and with their kids, which I think is quite a lot different than the crimes that Epstein was accused of committing.
Okay, Mike Nellis, I mean, notwithstanding, a lot of what Clay said there, I'm sure is right. But people want accountability. And as I said to Congresswoman Mace, the fact that there are going to be more than 3 million documents from the Epstein files that apparently are not going to be made public strikes me as absolutely staggering. And of course, that's going to do nothing but inflame all the raging conspiracy theories.
I think that's absolutely right, is people should be incredibly angry that nobody is being prosecuted for this. And let's be clear about what's happening here. The Department of Justice under Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are covering this up. Let's not forget that in July, over the July 4th weekend, they told us that this investigation was over and that there was nothing there. How many times do we have to hear that Donald Trump isn't in the Epstein files, that we find out he's in there a million times? How many times do we have to listen to guys like Howard Lutnick say, I met Jeffrey Epstein once, and then it turns out he was a creep, and I wasn't there? You keep unwinding this stuff, and you find that these guys have been lying for so long. So the reason there isn't accountability, either criminally or just in polite society, like Nancy Mace talked about earlier, is because Donald Trump is at the heart of this, because these guys are covering it up. Howard Lutnick says, I didn't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein. He only lived next door to the guy, started a business with the guy, and brought his kids, which to me is disgusting, on a trip to Epstein Island after it was already known that the guy was a registered sex offender.
All right, let's get into this first clip. Let's see what we've got here. Watching. Oh, Clay Travis. Of course. Of course it's Clay Travis doing the whole, well, actually, let's have some discernment routine. I'm sorry, did he just use Howard Lutnick bringing his wife and kids to Epstein Island as a defense? As if that makes it better. Oh no, it's fine, he brought the family to the island that was already... I genuinely can't. And there it is, the classic pivot. Why didn't Obama charge anyone? Why didn't Biden? That's the trick, isn't it? That's always the trick. Deflect, 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 because heaven forbid we talk about who's actually sitting in the Oval Office right now with the power to release these files. Right now. And Mike Nellis, bless him, is absolutely right. Prince Andrew? Finished. Lord Mandelson? Done. Career over. In Europe, association with Epstein carries consequences. But in America, in Trump's America, Howard Lutnick is a cabinet pick. He's being defended on national television. The audacity, the sheer brass neck of sitting there and saying, well, all connections aren't the same, when we're talking about a man who allegedly trafficked children. Children. And Clay's asking, who should be charged? Mate, release the files and we'll tell you. That's the whole point.
Donald Trump is out there saying, I didn't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein and what he was doing, except he was talking about it. He partied with the guy. He met his wife, his current wife, at an Epstein party. Not to mention the fact that he's mentioned the files over 1 million times. So it's embarrassing to me. And to your point, Piers, all over Europe, people are having their careers destroyed because of their relationship with a guy who is a registered sex offender who trafficked kids. And that's not happening in the United States. And it's embarrassing. And frankly, it's embarrassing when MAGA bootlickers come on and defend this stuff, because it's an 80-20 issue to the vast majority of Americans who are pissed. Kids were abused here. We got to take this seriously.
We have, but Isaiah Martin, I mean, you know...
Well, the government hasn't. You're taking it seriously, Piers, which I appreciate.
What crimes specifically should be charged?
Well, at a bare minimum, we know that there were kids that were trafficked. How is it possible that Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person that's ever going to be prosecuted for that?
Well, because she trafficked. I mean, if you read the indictment,
she trafficked them by herself. Is your position? Wait, hold on, Clay. Is your position that Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked these kids by herself?
She trafficked them for Jeffrey Epstein. That is what the charges
but by
show.
herself,
That's
nobody else helped. There were 1,000 little boys and 1,000 little girls that were trafficked on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein by Ghislaine Maxwell. But is she the only one who did it?
That is not accurate based on the evidence. I just asked a simple question. You want people prosecuted. Who should be prosecuted and what should they be charged with?
Yeah, I want the 6 co-conspirators to be prosecuted for trafficking little kids.
Okay,
and I want the rest of these people. Hold on, Clay. I'm answering your question.
I'm a lawyer, so this matters to me. When you say people should be charged, and when you
human
say
trafficking is a crime, you might want to check your penal code.
Charged. Who and with what crimes? Let me also ask you this as we lead into that. Why did Joe Biden not charge anybody? Why did Barack Obama not charge anybody? Do you think the only thing that Democrats and Republicans agree on is that Jeffrey Epstein should be protected and everybody else around him should be protected? Look, the reality here, in my opinion, is if you actually look at the evidence that came out, Trump in 2006 said, thank the Lord, basically, I'm paraphrasing, in the actual Epstein files in 2006, that you were able to charge this guy. We all knew that things were going on that were inappropriate. You can't go after Donald Trump on this at all. Do you really think that Joe Biden
hold on. Let's talk about that for a second.
Evidence that Trump committed crimes when he tried to imprison him for the rest of his life over bogus charges in New York City, when he tried to put him in prison, bankrupt him? You think he's set on Epstein? This just doesn't add up. So again, I circle back to the basic question. who should be charged and what should they be charged with based on your reading of the evidence. Specifically, tell me.
So this is a clever trick that these MAGA influencers like to do, is that they want to blame this on Joe Biden.
How is it a clever trick?
Hey, Clay, let me finish my point. Hold on, and then you can tell me why I'm wrong. But let me finish my point.
I said, I
answered your question already, Clay, but you keep interrupting me. All right, listen.
So
this is what they want to do.
Tell us what the charges should be.
This entire thing is a failure of multiple administrations. There are Democrats and Republicans in the file. And the bottom line here is that there's an Epstein class and its defenders, like Clay, and there's everybody else. And so right now, they're defending Donald Trump, who's been covering this up. There are 6 co-conspirators.
Clay, there are 6. Everybody should be charged with crimes.
No, it's not what I said, Clay. There are 6.
You can't even give me a name or a crime.
Do you realize how obtuse you sound at the idea that nobody else can be charged by this? There are 6 co-conspirators in the files that Congress has seen that are currently blocked off. You can't tell me that 1,000 little girls and boys were trafficked and nobody else.
And what the crimes
I don't know their names because they're concealing them in the files, Clay, because the Trump administration is covering this up.
Do you know what?
So you're telling me to tell you something that I don't know.
Time out. All right. Time out. You know, the bottom line, Clay, is this. The best way to work out who should be prosecuted and who should be charged is for every one of these files to be released unredacted. With the exception of the names of the victims. Hang on, with the exception of the names of the victims, right? So that everyone knows exactly who's been accused of what, and then everyone can determine who should potentially be prosecuted or not. Because they're going to keep back 3 million files, the suspicion will continue that this is a powerful
Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say about that.
And now we get to the bit that genuinely made my blood boil. Did you hear that? Did you actually hear what Clay Travis just said? So-called Epstein victims. So-called. Let that sink in for a moment. Women who were trafficked as children, who have testified, who have been through absolute hell. And this man sits there on live television and calls them so-called victims. Piers Morgan, to his credit, called it out immediately. And look, I don't agree with Piers on everything, but when even he's sitting there going, "That's embarrassing, quit while you're ahead, you know you've crossed a line. But here's what really gets me." This is the playbook, isn't it? This is exactly how they operate. When the evidence starts pointing towards Trump-aligned figures, suddenly the victims become so-called victims. Suddenly we need to wait for more evidence. Suddenly it's, well, who specifically should be charged? As if that's not the entire point of releasing the files. And the deflection to Biden and Obama? Classic. Absolutely classic. Why didn't they charge anyone? Right, because that somehow excuses what's happening right now under this administration. That somehow makes it acceptable that 3 million documents are being withheld. Isaiah Martin nailed it when he said there's an Epstein class and its defenders, and then there's everybody else. And mate, Clay Travis just showed us exactly which side he's on. The sheer audacity to minimise child trafficking victims on international television while simultaneously demanding to know specific charges. You can't make this stuff up.
All of the women who received payments, and I believe they received about $120 million in payments from the Epstein estate after he died. All of them are free to go out and name exactly who they say assaulted them, who they say victimized them in any way. They have complete ability to do that. The so-called Epstein victims who have received over $100 million.
So-called Epstein victims. We should call that out for what that is. That's a bullshit.
No, it's not. They are saying that they are Epstein victims and they have been paid. They can come out and say, no one is stopping them. I would welcome them. I would encourage them. Come out and tell us.
Well, actually, quite a few. Okay, but Clay, quite a few. Quite a few are beginning to do that. Quite a few are beginning to do that. So it's going to be interesting how many more follow that path. Isaiah, you've been waiting very patiently. What's your view of where we are with this scandal?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that this is a entire view of the Republican Party right here with Clay, the so-called Epstein victims. Look, ultimately, I think if the Republicans wanted to end this situation, they would call and join the millions of Americans that are saying that we want to see the unredacted Epstein files. 3 million files currently sit as we stand today that are redacted. And people want to see the truth. And the fact that you have MAGA running around carrying water for Trump, as Mike said, claiming that these victims are so-called victims or whatever it is, it's a shame to the American public. And it's why the Republican Party is losing trust all around this country. I think it's abundantly clear. It's why they're losing special elections everywhere we see, because of the fact that they are losing the trust of the American people. And I think that what Clay just said makes that abundantly clear.
I don't think that
Okay,
Republicans actually have any particular opinion. I'm sharing my opinion. I think actually the
You just said
majority
they
of
were
people
so-called
are just
Epstein
all
victims.
fed
You
up
said
with
so-called.
the Epstein situation in general. My position is, if you
They're
actually
fed
look
up?
at the evidence, I do not believe
Clay, wait a second.
that every
You said that
Democrat
they're
in
fed
power
up?
and every Republican in power conspired to cover up a bevy of charges that would otherwise have been brought. And by the way, if you
No,
want to
Clay,
make it a
Clay, what people are fed
Democrat-Republican
up
issue,
with, they're fed up with the fact that people are going in this country
overwhelmingly,
and they're
the people
carrying
who
water
are
for
accused
pedophiles in
of
America.
having
That's what they're
misbehaved
fed up with,
are
Clay.
actually Democrat donors like Jeffrey Epstein. If you want to make it a Democrat-Republican issue, there are way
Clay,
more
this is what's
Democrats
so insane
involved
about
in
this
the Epstein
situation.
files
We
than
have
there
said
are
from the very
prominent
beginning
Republicans.
that we
But
support
based on all
every
the
single
evidence
person
that
that
I
is
have
inside of the
seen,
Epstein files
I don't
that has
buy
been
that Joe
assaulting
Biden-
children.
You know the truth.
We want
The
to
truth
call
is,
them out.
okay,
We want to see them
Isaiah,
prosecuted.
okay,
That's
guys,
what we
guys,
say.
The truth is
that they're not going to trust
guys,
anybody.
the truth is, the Biden administration didn't release these files. The Trump administration promised to and hasn't released all the files. So the American people and the watching world, because this affects many other countries too, are looking on going, who is actually going to honor the claim to be transparent? And I think until there is proper transparency on this, this is going to go on and on and on and on. And actually, someone at some stage has to go, you know what? We're going to put it all out there, because until that happens, the conspiracy theories will rage. I want to move on. So,
And there it is. So-called Epstein victims. So-called. Let that sink in for a moment. That's where we are now. That's the level of discourse from these people. Children were trafficked, lives were destroyed, and the best defense they can muster is to question whether the victims are even real victims at all. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Look, I've watched a lot of these panels, yeah? I've seen a lot of deflection, a lot of whataboutism, a lot of clever rhetorical tricks designed to muddy the waters. But this is something else entirely. This is openly, brazenly, on live television. Dismissing child abuse victims because acknowledging them would be inconvenient for your political allies. And that's really what this comes down to, isn't it? 3 million documents. 3 million. Sitting there, redacted, hidden from public view. Why? Who benefits from that secrecy? Because it certainly isn't the victims. It certainly isn't justice. It certainly isn't democracy. So here's what I need from you lot in the comments. Stay loud, stay engaged, keep demanding those files be released in full, every single one of them, because the moment we stop pushing, the moment we accept trust us, there's nothing there, that's the moment accountability dies completely. This isn't about left or right anymore. This is about whether powerful people can abuse children and get away with it because they know the right people. And apparently some folks on television are perfectly comfortable with that arrangement. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable.